you guys are group D. All right, are we rolling? Okay. Is there anything that you guys want to say about the any part of chapter 2 that you finished up last night before I ask some directing questions? Any questions? Any comments? Any thoughts? Anything that caught your attention? Go ahead.
Can you talk about black magic?
What about?
Is it going to be like talked about later?
What is indicated by the term black market?
Something secret.
So what is the there's this sort of ethereal thing, this kind of mysterious idea of the black market. What is it in reality?
In our life? Or
in Oceania.
In the book, it's basically the place where you actually get real food, real items that you need. Mm-hmm. That's not really available.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's going to be referred to in that way. We don't need to get into much more depth about it, but it needs to be understood what it is. So let's talk about Winston and Julia. Is there anything you can say about her, about him, about them together, about anything? Any questions, any comments?
I just wanted to clarify something.
Yeah.
Okay, so on page 21 in the hard copy, I don't know what page it is in the paperback, it says black market, she said differently. Actually, I am that sort of girl to look at. And then she goes on like a list of things that she does for the party. She's trying to say that she's like what is she trying to say? Basically my question.
Okay, let's talk about that. She sort of enumerates these things that she does for the party, right? So I haven't found it. Can you read it, just a little bit of it?
Oh, that was right in the beginning where you told us to read, where you did this stuff. Remember that? I don't know if you're ahead or
we're the paperback is ahead.
121.
121. Okay. You thought I was a good party member, pure in word and deed? Is that where you are? Or beyond that? Black Market, I am that sort of girl. Look at, I'm good at games. I was a troop leader in the Spies. I do voluntary work 3 evenings a week for the Junior Anti-Sex League. Hours and hours I spent pasting their bloody rot all over London. I always carry one end of the banner in the processions. I always look cheerful, and I never shirk anything. Always yell with the crowd. That's what I say. It's the only way to be safe. How can you describe the way she lives her life as a party member in front of Big Brother? What are you thinking? Okay, so what is she doing while she's sort of actively being a member of the party? I mean, is she just doing the bare minimum like Winston is doing?
Doing everything possible, like, to make it seem that she's not, like, breaking the rules or anything.
Okay, so I'm not shouting anybody out, but I know that there's people like this in here, right? So basically, why is she, and you kind of said it, but let's pull it out a little bit more. She's holding the banners in the parades, right? She's putting in voluntary hours. She's doing extra work for the Junior Anti-Sex League. Is she doing all of that because those are causes and ideas that she believes in?
No.
Why is she doing it?
She's doing it to make it look like she's totally devoted to the party, and she is like go with everything they stand for. So
Okay.
She does the extra.
Okay. To what end? Why is it in her best interest to make the party believe that she is such a good and loyal party member?
Well, I mean, it's easier to rebel if you know their weaknesses and strengths.
Okay. So in some ways for knowledge, to get it sort of inside the brain of the beast. Why else would it be to her benefit while she's in Oceania, while she's being a party member, to do everything she can to be at the forefront of the causes?
To make it seem like there's no way that she will rebel against the party.
Bingo. She becomes the one you least suspect, right? So think about your friends. Think about the people in this class. If any of them sort of represent that idea, that on the surface, maybe to teachers, maybe academically, they put on this face of being almost a goody-goody, right? Teacher's pet. They do all their work. They get straight A's. And in some ways, because of that maybe underlying, they're like a bit of a sneak, a little bit of a troublemaker, and nobody would ever suspect that of them. So they create this persona to kind of hide the truth, to hide the reality beneath. Does that make sense? I remember, I don't recall what episode it was, but there was a Simpsons episode where they're talking about if they could come back as an animal, what animal would they want to be? And Bart says he would come back as a butterfly. And Lisa says, why? And he says, because nobody ever suspects the butterfly. And then they do a cutaway scene, and Bart is this giant butterfly, and he's like pouring gasoline on the school and burning it to the ground. And he's like, no, nobody would ever suspect me because I'm the pretty little butterfly. So in that way, does what Juliet is doing make sense? She's creating this cover. Later in the next chapter, she's going to call it a camouflage, right? She creates this persona so nobody would expect her rebellion. Good. That's an important thing to point out. Anything else from anything that you read about it?
The fact that the area that they were in was just like the golden country that he dreamed of.
Yeah, he's dreamed of this place where he is. What else? Thank you. What else is reflective of that dream? In what other ways does this dream kind of come together?
The way she took off her belt.
And everything else. Right? Yeah, almost as swiftly as he had imagined it, she had torn her clothes off, and when she flung them aside, it was with that same magnificent gesture by which a whole civilization seemed to be annihilated. So the dream that we almost laughed about, that we scoffed about, he was dreaming of this girl that he, just days before he wanted to kill. The dream is in very real ways coming true. And let's talk about the conversation that ensues after that, after she took her clothes off. What does he ask her? This is sort of an awkward conversation that like lots of relationships eventually come to. What was it? Yeah, you've done this before. And she says, and what we have to do, what we have to do is we have to divorce ourselves from like our social stigma surrounding that. Like if you were in a relationship and you asked that of somebody and they said, oh yeah, I've been with hundreds of people, that might make you feel a certain way about that person. But it's totally different here, isn't it? That the reality is completely distorted. Is he disgusted by her answer? Does he say, oh my gosh, what kind of diseases must you have? Get away from me. No, rather than being disgusted, how does he respond?
He's like really happy because he knows that somebody's rebelling against the party to this degree and really fulfillment.
Exactly. Any other thoughts? Good.
He was happy about it and he started thinking like, what diseases he would bring to the party.
Yeah, he kind of wants to contribute. Like if she represents this rebellion, he kind of wants to be a part of that, right? So again, the idea of like sexual partners doesn't have the implications in their society that it's got in our society. It was just another form of rebellion. And the more she had done it, the more it kind of proved to him, as Winter says, the more it proved to him that rebellion was possible. And the more she had been with, he even says, the more men you've had, the more I love you. Which is, again, is not what we might say in our society. But does it make sense why he reacts in that way? That he's thrilled about it. Good. Anything else about what you did? Anything else? Go ahead.
He says at the end that the whole situation was a political act.
Yep, he does. I was going to point that out if you hadn't. So look at the last couple sentences. You could not have pure love or pure lust nowadays. No emotion was pure because everything was mixed up with fear and hatred. Their embrace had been a battle, the climax of victory. It was a blow struck against the party. It was a political act. That's really romantic, isn't it? To call sex a political act. How do you interpret that? What does he mean by that? It was a political act. I mean, he's had sex lots of times before, hasn't he? Right, he had sex with Catherine probably a lot. We know he's had some prostitutes. Why was this different? Why was this act different? Political act.
Because he said it was because like he wants to be a part of the rebellion, and that's like political. So. Okay.
So in what way does sex with Julia constitute rebellion? Constitute a political act in a way that, like sex with Catherine and sex with the pro didn't? Jen?
Well, it's different because with Catherine, it was supposed to be for the party because they were just making babies and there was like no emotions behind it and no like. But with Julia, they had to go somewhere else to hide what they were doing and they had some emotion behind what they were doing.
Okay, good. Add to that.
They're both party members.
Okay, they're both party members. We know that voluntary relationships between party members would never be sanctioned. What else? Any other thoughts on that? I mean, the basic underlying idea is that it's an emotion that is ungovernable by Big Brother, right? It's an expression of an emotion that Big Brother hasn't sanctioned, doesn't know about. If you want to know if something is rebellion, think about what would happen to you if you got caught doing it, right? I mean, that's a good way to think about it. Remember we talked about how if you wanted to cut class, like if you wanted to rebel against me and I said, oh, go ahead, you're fine, leave, then it's not really rebelling, is it? It's not really cutting class. So that's a good way to think about rebellion. If I got caught by the person I'm hiding from, what would happen? And if the answer is some sort of punishment, then you're probably talking about rebellion. Yeah? Okay. Anything else from that chapter?
Okay.
Yeah, Matt.
I didn't get the part of the bird.
Yeah, let's talk about that. The thrush, right? If you flip back to that in paperback, it's 123. 103, thank you. A thrush had alighted on a bough not 5 meters away, almost at the level of their faces. So what does this bird begin doing? Singing. And what do Winston and Julia do? They just hang out. They listen. They enjoy it. In fact, Julia says what? That she wishes what? Go ahead and look through the text if you need. Getting the odd sense of other presences sitting somewhere in the room, although I can't see any other human beings but the 6 of us. What does she say she hopes about that song? Perhaps at the other end of the instrument, some small beetle-like man was listening intently, listening to that. Oh, does he? Oh, I'm sorry. Regardless. Okay, so he says that. Does he?
Yeah.
Okay, so he says it. Either way, what is he hoping for and why?
That the little beetle man is just listening, enjoying it. That's the kind of rebellion.
Do you think that he is hoping that this little beetle guy is like enjoying it? Is kind of enjoying the song, getting joy out of it the way he and Julia are? What's an alternative to that?
That he's hearing that, but not hearing anything else.
Okay. Why would he be hopeful that good Orthodox party members would be sitting on the other side of a secret hidden microphone and listening to that song of that bird? Why might he hope that?
Because they know they can't control that.
Because it's something natural, right? It's something beautiful. It's something unsanctionable, ungovernable, like their love, perhaps, right? That Big Brother can't control. This is what nature sounds like. Stuff that you, Big Brother, can't change, can't get your hands on. Can you relate the song of the thrush to anything else we've read in the book so far? Anything else we've stumbled upon that is kind of that reflection of something natural, a relic from the past, something that Big Brother can't control or change?
The old room.
Okay, the old room, good, above Carrington's shop. What else? Think more about that shop. What else is kind of a reflection of that type of ungovernable beauty?
The thing that he bought, the glass paperweight.
The coral paperweight. Can you see how all of these things kind of relate? The paperweight, the room above the shop, the unsanctioned sex that they're having, and the thrush singing. Can you see all these things relate? They all sort of represent that same idea. Good. Excellent. I'm glad you brought that up. Anything else? Anything else from chapter 2? Any confusions? Any comments? You guys feel like you're ready to roll? All right, cool. So let's pick up and start in chapter 2. Again, not surprisingly, we open up with Julia taking complete command of the situation as she is wont to do. We can come here once again. I'm going to start out by asking if one of you guys would read a little bit for us, and then go ahead.
We can come here once again, said Julia. It's generally safe to use any hideout twice, but not for another month or two. Of course. As soon as she woke up, her demeanor had changed. She became alert and businesslike, put her clothes on, knotted the scarlet sash around her waist, and began arranging the details of the journey home. It seemed natural to leave this to her. She obviously had a practical cunning which Winston lacked, and she seemed also to have an exhaustive knowledge of the countryside around London, stored away from innumerable community hikes. The route she gave him was quite different from the one by which he had come, and brought him out of it at a different railway station. Never go home the same way as you went out, she said, as though enunciating an important general principle. She would leave first, and Winston was to wait half an hour before following. She had named a place where they could meet afterward, 4 evenings hence. It was a street in one of the poorer quarters, where there was an open market, which was generally crowded and noisy. She would be hanging about among the stalls, pretending to be in search of stimulations or suing threat. If she judged that the coast was clear, she would blow her nose when he approached. Otherwise, he was to walk past her without recognition. But with luck, in the middle of the crowd, it would be safe to talk for a quarter of an hour and arrange another meeting. And now I must go, she said as soon as he had mastered his instructions. I'm due back at 1930. I've got to put in 2 hours for the junior anti-sex league, handing out leaflets or something. Isn't it bloody? Give me a brush down, would you? Have I got any twigs in my hair? Are you sure? Then goodbye, my love. Goodbye.
Okay, what thoughts or reflections can you make about the conclusion of this first romantic interlude in the forest? Anything to say about it? How do you feel about it? Are you trusting her any more than you did? Are you trusting her less? What are your opinions of Julia? She's a compelling character, I think. Go ahead.
I trust her more because if she really was like thoughtfully like he thought before, she wouldn't have sex with him in the first place. She would have just met him there and called him.
Can somebody? Did you have something else? Go ahead.
And now she seems to like show that she loves him now.
Okay, she's being almost affectionate, right? Winter, I felt like you wanted to respond to something India said.
Yeah. Excuse my grammar, but she would have been got him. She would have been got him.
So you trust her?
I trust her because I feel like to go back and keep meeting him over and over again when he could have just been vaporized a while ago, I feel like that's extra.
Do you three trust her?
Yes.
You all trust her. Do you trust her for the reasons that Winter and India said? You do, you don't. So you guys agree that if she was out to get him, she would have got him already, right? She wouldn't have wasted so much time. She wouldn't have. I mean, we're talking years of time, right? It doesn't seem logical for Winston, who's a peon, who's a nothing. That's logic, right? You trust her, but for different reasons.
I trust her, but I don't think that just because that she didn't get him yet means that she's thought police or she. Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
That she didn't get him yet means that she's not thought police.
Yeah, I think we understand what you're saying. So what? So why would she? I mean, let's pretend for a second that she is out to get him. Why would she wait so long?
Because maybe she's like still establishing like that trust that Winston can tell her anything that he's doing that's like not orthodox or whatever. But I do trust her.
Okay.
But I don't think that that's a reason to trust her.
Okay. So again, just I want you to just imagine that I'm coming from this, not having read the book before either, and I'm forming a first opinion the same way you guys are. I trust her too. Although I don't know if I can articulate it in the ways that you guys articulated it. I just have a gut feeling that she's to be trusted. And maybe that's what if she's not to be trusted, maybe that's what she's banking on. However, I don't think it's because of what you said, India. That's my opinion, is that you said she wouldn't have had sex with him. And I want you to just consider, again, I feel like you're considering sex, like that act, from our perspective today, but it was nothing. It would have been it was just like if somebody said, in order to catch this criminal, you have to have sex with him. If she was, in fact, a good party member, I think it would have been aye, boss. You know what I mean?
It's not just about the when they had sex. Like before, when they first started talking, how she told him what she how she's committed to the party.
Mm-hmm.
Just not be not be suspicious or anything. Like she told him that like she trusted him. So.
You think so? Besides just the act, you think that there's things that she said to him that if she was undercover, she wouldn't have said.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense. Any other thoughts about Julia? I hope the rest of you guys who aren't here right now are also continuing to develop your opinions of the kind of person Julia is, whether she is worthy of our trust or our suspicion. Okay, she flung herself into his arms. Somebody pick up from there. This romantic parting in the woods. Thanks, India.
She flung herself into his arms, kissed him almost violently, and a moment later pushed her away through the seconds and disappeared into the wood with very little noise. Even now, he had found out her surname.
Her surname, her last name.
Oh.
of her address. However, it made no difference for it
Inconceivable?
inconceivable that could ever meet indoors or exchange any kind of written communication. As it happened, they never went back to the clearing in the wood. During the month of May, there were only further occasions on which they actually succeeded in making love. That was another hiding place known to Julia, that
The belfry?
belfry of a Roman church in almost deserted stretch of country where an atomic bomb had fallen 30 years earlier. It was good hiding place where once you got there, but the getting there was very dangerous.
Hold on one second. So I hope you're seeing a certain irony in the fact that the place they meet to have sex is this abandoned church. There is a bit of hinted religion in this act, I think, but getting there was tough. Go ahead.
For the rest, they could only meet in the streets in different places every evening and never for more than half an hour at a time. In the street, it was usually possible to talk after a fashion. As they drifted down the crowded pavements, not quite abreast and never looking at one another, they carried on a curious and interminate conversation which flicked on and off like the waves of a lighthouse, suddenly nipped into the silence of the approach of the party uniform or approximately of a telescreen, then taking up again minutes later in the middle of the sentence, then abruptly cut short as they parted at the agreed spot. Then continue almost with introduction on the following day. Julia appeared to be quite used to this kind of conversation, which is called talking by installments. She said she was also surprisingly adept at speaking without moving her lips.
Are you guys getting a good image of how they kind of have to grow their relationship in this jarring, choppy, awkward way? They walk by each other in the street. They can stand next to each other for 5, 10, 15 minutes at a time. There is no way to sort of say hello. They have to pick up their conversations, bless you. They have to pick up their conversations, bless you, in the middle of where they were, sometimes like right in the middle of a sentence. Like they have to pause their conversations by a day, by a week, and just pick up right where they were. I mean, how do you nurture a relationship that is so choppy, that's so disconnected? All right, let's make sure we read the end of this paragraph very closely so that there's no confusion, which there was in the other class. Go ahead.
Just once in a month of the night meetings, they managed to exchange a kiss. They were passing in silence down the street. Julia would never speak when they were away from the main streets. When they were deafening roar, the earth have and the air darkened, and Winston found himself lying on the side, bruised and terrified. A rocket bomb must have dropped quite near at hand. Suddenly he became aware of Julia's face a few centimeters from his own, deathly white as chalk. Even her lips were white. She was dead. He collapsed her against him and found that he was kissing a live, warm face, but there was some powdery stuff that got in the way of her lips. Both of their faces were thickly coated with plastic.
Okay, let's talk about this. All right? A close reading indicates what about Julia?
That chalk flew in her face?
Yeah, I mean, chalk. So why would her face have been white? Probably not chalk, unless they were near a school. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about plaster from blown up streets, sidewalks, buildings, things like that. Is she dead?
No.
No, she's not dead. Okay, so the gasp is what Orwell wanted to get out of you, but then we are to find the truth as quickly as Winston does. She's laying on top of him. Her face is white. She's covered in dust. His initial reaction is she's dead. I mean, a bomb went off, right? Then he kisses her and realizes that he's kissing what? A living person, a warm face. If only Romeo had realized the same thing. You know, all of that could have been prevented. So yes, they were in the midst of a rocket bombing. Yes, they were in trouble. He thought for a second she was dead. It needs to be clear to you guys that she's not. Okay. There were evenings when they reached their rendezvous and then had to walk past one another without a sign because a patrol had just come around the corner or a helicopter was hovering overhead. Even if it had been less dangerous, it still would have been difficult to find time to meet. Winston's working week was 60 hours. Julia's was even longer, and their free days varied according to the pressure of work and did not often coincide. Julia, in any case, seldom had an evening completely free. She spent an astonishing amount of time in attending lectures and demonstrations, distributing literature for the Junior Anti-Sex League, preparing banners for Hate Week, making collections for the Savings Campaign, and such like activities. It paid, she said. It was camouflage. If you kept the small rules, you could break the big ones. She even induced Winston to mortgage yet another of his evenings by enrolling himself for the part-time munition work, which was done voluntarily by zealous party members. So one evening every week, Winston spent 4 hours of paralyzing boredom screwing together small bits of metal, which were probably parts of bomb fuses, in a drafty, ill-lit workshop where the knocking of hammers mingled drearily with the music of the telescreens. So she's even able to get him to do a little more voluntary work, to put himself out there in a little bit more open way, so that she could maybe get him to break some of those rules. Do you understand what she's saying? And I think it's really well said. If you kept the small rules, you could break the big ones, right? Like what? How can you sort of interpret that? How can you reword that? What does she mean by that? It's kind of the adage by which she lives her life. If you keep the small rules, you can break the big ones. What's intended by that? Dar?
Maybe that if you keep like all those little small, like all the volunteering and stuff that she's doing, all of that adds up. So like everybody's thinking that you're good because you're doing all these like small little voluntary things, but no one knows that what you're doing behind closed doors.
Bingo. Does that make sense? Does that work for everybody? All right, so in a minute we're going to stop, and you guys are all going to finish this chapter over the weekend. The one thing that I want you to pay particular attention to is we're about to get to find out Julia's age. And Winston is how old?
39.
39. What you're going to find is that Julia is significantly younger. Now, I want you to think about the implications that age divide might have in their relationship, considering, again, that age probably doesn't matter in the sense that it matters, for us. If a 45-year-old and a 25-year-old were getting together, that would be something that might catch people's attention, because those are some rules, some unspoken rules that our society imparts. Obviously, those types of rules don't exist in Oceania, but think of ways that the age difference might create a gap in their relationship, in their ideologies, in their philosophies. He's obviously seen more, been alive for more than she has, and that could potentially change things. So read with that in mind as you finish the chapter. Is there anything else that any of you guys want to say or comment on or ask about? Yeah.
When they said that he kissed her, like they was like in front of the telescope.
They were in public, so why did he feel like he could? Why do you think that he did that? That seems like that's an excellent point. That seems like a risky thing to do. Why do you think that he took the chance at that moment to kiss her publicly? Go ahead.
Because like he thought she was dead, so like he didn't have nobody else to be with him.
Yeah. So first of all, he thought she was dead, and he thought that their relationship was coming to an end, and he already considers himself dead, right? So why not sort of give her one last goodbye kiss? What is the other sort of logistical reason why it might have been okay to kiss her? Why might nobody have noticed, you guys? Matt?
There's like a bunch of commotion going on.
Because a bomb just went off, right? So, you can't imagine people running home and being like, you'll never guess what just happened. I saw two party members kiss. Oh yeah, and a bomb went off. It would have hardly caught people's attention. Even that show of affection publicly would probably have not caught people's attention. Anything else that you're confused about or want to comment on? Okay, so you guys are going to finish the chapter this weekend, and we will reconvene on Monday. Thank you very much, group members and scene.